There is a frequency that changes everything. It doesn't come from outside. It doesn't belong to a temple or a tradition. It doesn't require rituals or permission or decades of training. It's already inside you, woven into your breath, humming beneath your heartbeat, waiting, not for you to discover it, but for you to remember it. And it doesn't need belief, only resonance. When you find it, when you let it rise through your chest like a forgotten note suddenly remembered, your entire being shifts. Not just your emotions, not just your thoughts, your entire field realigns. This is not theory. This is not an idea. This is vibrational technology, a knowing older than language and far more precise. This sound has been passed down not through textbooks or teachings, but through presence, through eyes that saw too much and mouths that often remained closed. Not everyone is ready for a truth this simple. They called it many things in many lands, but those who truly felt it knew it by one name: the sound of 0 point, the sound of origin, the seed tone. And when you sing it, with the right emotion, in the right silence, it doesn't echo, it activates. It doesn't ask, it commands. And what it commands is alignment, not obedience, not control, but resonance. It brings you back to your original code, to the frequency of your true self, not the version they gave you, not the one shaped by fear and repetition, but the one that existed before memory, the one that pulses through all things, untouched, unshaken, whole. Today you'll remember how to release it. But before you do, you need to understand why all your spiritual effort hasn't yet created the shift you long for. Why the mantras feel flat, why the meditations fade, why the affirmations feel like lies whispered into empty space. It's not because you're broken, it's not because something's missing, it's because your field is still carrying a signal that contradicts your desire. And the universe does not respond to desire, it responds to vibration. Your vibration is not shaped by what you want or say or visualize. It is shaped by what you carry in silence, what you feel in your core, what you believe when no one is watching. That is your real transmission, and reality responds not to your surface, but to your signal. You can't fake frequency. You can't trick vibration. The universe doesn't speak English. It speaks resonance. If you vibrate fear, you cannot attract peace. If you vibrate lack, you cannot embody abundance. If you vibrate doubt, you will block every miracle at the gate. And it's not because the universe is cruel, it's because it is exact. It reflects not your words, but your waveform. And the good news, your waveform can change in an instant, with awareness, with presence, with the right sound, because sound is not just heard, it is felt, it is received, it is embodied. And when the right sound meets the right inner state, everything begins to shift, not slowly, not subtly, but completely. But before you can release the sound, you must understand what has kept you out of tune. And it's not the big events, it's not the traumas you already know, it's the subtle, the small, the overlooked. It's the sigh you swallow, the judgment you justify, the emotion you suppress, the thought you entertain and forget to question. It's the micro shifts that tilt your frequency off center. And once that happens, your whole field distorts. Like a radio station slightly out of tune, everything still plays, but it crackles, it drags, it resists. And you think that's life, but it's not. It's just static. And the truth is, beneath the static, there is clarity. Beneath the distortion, there is code. Beneath the noise, there is music. And once you remember how to tune back in, once you hear the sound not with your ears but with your being, you'll never lose it again. Because this sound does not leave you, it becomes you. It is not a tool, it is a return. It is not a practice, it is a frequency key. And today we unlock it. And here lies one of the most overlooked truths. Your vibration is not shaped by the big dramatic moments. It is shaped by your micro habits, the subtle repetition of unconscious thoughts, the way you speak to yourself when no one is listening, the emotions you suppress, the feelings you fake, the tiny daily choices you make that no one else sees, but your frequency does. Every word you speak has a tone. Every feeling you feed builds a signal. And every intention you carry, whether you act on it or not, shapes your energetic field. You are constantly emitting, constantly broadcasting, even in silence. And what you broadcast, you attract. Not as punishment, but as resonance. So if life feels stuck, if patterns keep repeating, if you're doing all the right things and nothing moves, maybe it's not in what you're doing. Maybe it's in what you're vibrating while doing it. And here's the core of it, the invisible mistake that pulls your vibration down even when you think you're rising. It's subtle, almost imperceptible, but incredibly powerful. That's why people read all the books, say all the affirmations, take all the courses, and still feel like they're looping in the same space. Because there's a hidden frequency, a background signal, that's never been cleared. You can say I am light 1,000 times, but if your nervous system is tight with fear, if your chest is heavy with unspoken grief, if your subconscious is vibrating lack or insecurity, then that is the frequency the universe receives, not the words, the energy behind the words, the emotion behind the statement. Because that's where vibration lives. You can paint your life with golden affirmations, but if the inner walls are still soaked in shadow, the echo will remain hollow. It might look pretty, but it won't feel whole. And this is where most people unknowingly block themselves, trying to manifest through the mind, forcing positivity to override pain, speaking light while vibrating density. You were taught to use the mind to overpower the heart, to use logic to override feeling, to repeat mantras like you're convincing the universe, when really you're trying to convince yourself of something you haven't yet fully felt. But the universe isn't listening to your voice, it's listening to your state, your field, your truth. You say I am abundant, but your body is vibrating worry. You say I am love, but resentment is still lodged in your solar plexus. You say I am ready, but your heart is closed. And here's the most important part. You cannot raise your vibration with your mind alone. You can't think your way into a new state while feeling the old one. Because true vibration doesn't come from thought. It comes from coherence. When the heart and mind speak the same language, when what you say and what you feel are finally aligned, that's when the field shifts. That's when you stop pushing and start attracting. That's when reality stops resisting you, because you're no longer resisting yourself. And almost no one talks about this. They say think differently, but they don't say feel differently. And feeling requires presence, surrender, honesty, the courage to stop controlling and start listening. You cannot override what you haven't acknowledged. You cannot heal what you continue to ignore. And the truth is your vibration is not being held back by what's missing, but by what is still buried, the unfelt emotion, the old shame, the suppressed rage, the grief that never had a voice. This is the weight that holds your field down. This is the static beneath your signal. And no mantra, no vision board, no visualization will lift it until it is felt. But once it is seen, welcomed, breathed into, and released, it becomes power, it becomes clarity, it becomes light, and there is a path, a simple ancient method that reaches the vibration where it is born, in the energetic body, where breath and emotion intersect, not a ritual, not a belief, but a practice passed through silent spiritual lineages, Sufis, yogis, Egyptian initiates, those who understood that breath was not just survival, it was entry, it was transformation. And what they practiced was not just deep breathing, it was conscious breath, combined with elevated emotion. Because breath alone opens the door, but breath when paired with an honest, powerful, elevated feeling, that's what dissolves the static, that's what unlocks the field, that's what begins the true ascent. Because breath is the bridge between your body and your soul, between your intention and your vibration. And it's been there all along, silently waiting for you to notice it. To unlock the sound, you must first unlock the body, and the body listens to breath. But not just any breath, intentional breath. Because when you breathe with intention, you awaken energy centers that have been asleep. You begin to open portals that exist within you, not metaphorically, but literally. And that's when the miracle begins. Now imagine this. You take a slow, deep inhale, but along with the air, you visualize a golden light entering your chest. Not just any light, a light that carries peace, that carries gratitude, that carries love. In that moment, you're not just breathing, you're calling a vibration into your field. You're shifting the electromagnetic frequency that surrounds you. And when you do it with truth, with surrender, with real feeling, something reorganizes instantly. Science is beginning to catch up. Neuroscience, physiology and quantum biology now confirm what sages knew without instruments. Your breathing pattern doesn't just control your oxygen levels. It influences your nervous system, your heart rhythm, your hormonal flow, even your perception of reality. When you breathe slowly, deeply, and consciously, you trigger what is known as heart coherence, a state where your heart, brain, and body begin to work in synchrony, where the noise fades and your signal becomes clear. But the ancients already knew this, and what they practiced went beyond relaxation. They breathed with emotion, not to calm the mind, but to reprogram the field, because emotion is vibration, and when combined with breath, it becomes a code, a living signal that the universe responds to immediately. And here's the best part: it doesn't take an hour, it doesn't take a perfect routine, it only takes truth. 3 minutes, 5, 10, as much as you can give, fully. But do not breathe as if trying to fix something. Do not approach it like a technique to patch a wound. This is not repair, it is reconnection, a sacred ritual with your own essence. You inhale love, you feel it, warm, expansive, in your chest. You let it vibrate, grow, take space inside your body. You exhale everything that no longer resonates: fear, tension, judgment, the stories that once felt permanent. All of it begins to melt in the silence of your presence. This is not breathwork. This is a frequency practice, a vibrational key left behind by those who knew that real power doesn't lie in objects, in tools, or in temples. It lies in the inner movement of energy, because moving energy means shifting vibration, and shifting vibration means changing reality. You don't need any belief system. You don't need a special chant, or a certification, or a spiritual title. You only need presence, breath, and true emotion. But the journey doesn't stop there, because what comes next is older than breath, and more powerful than thought. It's something that shapes even the structure of matter, and it's something you carry within you at all times, even if you've forgotten how to use it. Sound, the invisible force that builds and breaks, the code that aligns the unseen and the physical. The language of the universe that does not require words, only tone. You may have never thought about it this way, but sound is an architecture. It constructs, it destroys, it activates, it paralyzes. And this is not poetry, it's physics. The science of cymatics has already proven it. We now have real images of how different frequencies organize particles, tiny grains of sand, dust, or water rearranging themselves into perfect geometric patterns, just from a sound wave. Circles, stars, mandalas, all of it formed by tone alone. Now imagine, if a single sound can organize grains of sand, what can that sound do to your energy field, to your cells, to the frequency you emit without even realizing? You are not just flesh. You are not just thoughts. You are vibration layered upon vibration. A symphony of frequencies shaped by memories, emotions, breath, and yes, sound. And most of those layers are unconscious. Old frequencies passed on from your childhood, your culture, your lineage. But sound can reach them, because sound bypasses the mind. It doesn't need logic. It doesn't care what you believe. It touches the system directly. That's why sacred traditions have always used sound. Chants, mantras, seed syllables, inner tones, not to perform but to transform. Because when the right sound meets the right intention, something reorganizes at the deepest level of your being. And that sound, the one the ancients protected, the one that harmonizes the chaos, the one that remembers you before you forgot yourself, that's the sound we're about to return to. Because the breath opens the door, but it is sound that steps through it. Sound doesn't just influence reality, it creates it. Your body reacts to sound. Your organs, your hormones, your thoughts, your subtle field, everything vibrates in response to frequencies. And those frequencies don't just enter through your ears, they move through your skin, your bones, your spine. They ride the air, the silence, the very space between your thoughts. That's why certain music makes you cry without a single lyric. Why ancient chants make your heart race, your breath pause, your skin tingle. Because sound doesn't speak to the mind, it speaks directly to the soul. It reaches what words can't. It bypasses logic and travels into the heart of memory, into the root of emotion, into the blueprint of your energy. Ancient civilizations understood this deeply. They used sound with reverence, not entertainment. In the temples of Thoth in ancient Egypt, certain tones were chanted to activate ancestral memory, tones that reached into the DNA and turned dormant strands into living codes. Tibetan monks used mantras to ascend consciousness. Indigenous shamans sang healing into bones, organs, timelines. They knew something we are only just starting to remember: sound transforms. But not just any sound, not casual tones or random notes. We're speaking about pure, harmonic, intentional frequencies. Sounds like Om, Ho, Ra, Ah, not just syllables but vibrational keys. These are codes, not concepts. They are not just chanted, they are embodied. When vocalized with presence and real emotion, they don't echo into the air, they reprogram your field. These sounds cleanse, they unblock, they awaken, they vibrate directly through the chakra system. They reach into the soul's most hidden corridors, where unspoken trauma sleeps, where forgotten joy lies waiting. They reactivate what was once divine within you. But beyond all of this, there exists something even more sacred. A specific vibrational sequence, not found in books, not in mainstream mantras. A guarded code passed only through initiatic lineages, from healer to student, from heart to heart. This sequence is not just a group of sounds, it is an alignment tool, a frequency architecture. It combines sound, breath, emotion and rhythm into one vibration that reconnects body, mind and spirit. When you chant this sequence consciously, you don't just relax, you reorganize. Your internal chaos begins to settle. Your cellular memory awakens. Your soul starts to recognize the path back home. Because this sequence vibrates beyond personal transformation, it touches the collective field. It elevates not just you but the space you occupy. You become a transmitter, a living resonance, a signal of coherence in a world of noise. And this is where the secret of Thoth comes in. A sound practice protected in silence for centuries. A vibrational method that was never written, only spoken, only given to those who were truly ready. Because once activated, this sound does not just vibrate, it creates, it builds, it attracts, it reshapes the frequency around you like a sacred architect of light. And when we say create your reality, this is not metaphor, it is literal. Your body, made mostly of water, responds directly to vibration. Not only responds, it obeys. The Japanese researcher Masaru Emoto demonstrated it with clarity. He showed how water molecules change form depending on the words, thoughts and intentions they receive. Love and gratitude produced crystalline beauty. Anger and hatred produced chaotic distortion. Now imagine that your inner world is made of that same water, that your blood, your cells, your thoughts, all of it responds to every word you speak, every thought you think, every tone you use. And the most powerful part, it's not what you say, it's how you say it. It's what you feel while saying it. That's the vibration the universe hears. That's the signal your body responds to. Because when you stop speaking and start singing, something changes. Singing is not just a melody, it is the activation of your body as an instrument. Your chest becomes the drum, your throat becomes the flute, your soul becomes the amplifier. Singing with emotional intention is like setting fire to truth and letting it echo through your bones. And when the song is made of sacred vibrational words, something shifts. Your frequency doesn't just rise, it radiates. This isn't casual humming, this is archetypal sound. Ancient syllables carried through time, small in form, massive in power. When chanted with presence, words like Ra, Ho, or Ah become more than sound. They become commands, not demands. Commands, vibrational instructions that reorganize your field, cleanse your emotions, align your body. They don't just awaken you, they protect you. They stabilize your energy. They build a natural shield around your frequency that resists dense interference. This is what priests, healers, and true initiates knew. This is what was passed hand to hand, not as dogma, but as living technology. Because sound doesn't belong to any one culture, it belongs to consciousness. It doesn't follow religion, language, or time. Vibration transcends all of that. You don't need to understand it with your mind. You only need to feel it, to sing it, to embody it. Because when you vibrate these ancient codes with your whole being, you're not echoing a chant, you're awakening a memory. You're becoming a frequency that heals, aligns, and creates. And the most incredible part, this practice is available to you now. You don't need to wait for the right moment, or for your life to be perfectly in order. You don't need years of study. You don't need to be a master. You only need to be present, because presence is the only requirement for activation. This is not about performance. It's not about singing beautifully or sounding mystical. It's about resonance. It's about truth, the purity of your emotion, the sincerity in your voice, the courage to speak a sound not just from your throat, but from your core. That's when the sound works. That's when it moves. When it flows not as music, but as frequency. So how do you begin? You begin with breath. Slow, intentional, sacred breath. You inhale with awareness, not to get oxygen, but to invite light. You exhale not just to release air, but to let go of density. Then you add emotion, gratitude, peace, reverence. Whatever elevated feeling is true in that moment, let it fill your chest like golden warmth. And from that inner fire, you allow the sound to emerge. You don't force it, you don't shape it. You let it rise like a memory surfacing. You let it vibrate through your bones. The sound may be simple, just one tone, or it may come in ancient syllables like Ra, Ho, Om. Each of them is a key, a specific frequency encoded with memory, intelligence, and transformation. When you vocalize them with presence, you're not just making noise, you're sending instructions into your field. You're speaking directly to your cells. You're tuning your nervous system like an instrument. You're telling the quantum field, I remember, and the field always responds. Because energy doesn't resist resonance, it obeys it. It reorganizes around it. You may feel heat or shivers. You may feel tears rise with no reason. This is not emotion, it's energy moving. Blocked circuits clearing, forgotten channels awakening, and in this moment, you are both the healer and the healed. The sound and the listener, the sacred technology and the sacred space. This is the medicine, this is the remembering. This is the real spiritual initiation, not climbing mountains, not seeking answers in the stars, but sounding the truth inside your chest. And when done with consistency, this practice doesn't just shift your vibration for a few moments, it begins to rewrite your baseline. You stop falling back into fear, you stop collapsing under doubt, your field holds, your presence sharpens, your magnetism expands, you begin to walk differently. Not louder, but clearer, and people feel it. Not because you speak more, but because your silence begins to resonate. You become a living code, a harmonic field, a tuning fork in human form. And from that place you no longer need to chase alignment, you become it. You no longer search for your path, you are the path. And it all begins with one sound, one breath, one moment of truth. Are you ready to speak it? Not with your lips, but with your being. Because now, it's your turn to sound the memory awake. And this is not metaphor. This is frequency physics. This is vibrational anatomy. You are not just a body that thinks. You are a bioelectromagnetic system, a standing wave of conscious energy held together by memory, intention, and breath. When you speak with presence, when you sound with feeling, you're not just creating vibrations in the air, you're creating ripples in the quantum field. The field is not out there. It surrounds you, it responds to you, and most importantly, it remembers you. Every time you chant, you're not adding something new to yourself. You are activating what has always been within. You are reactivating your original signal, the one that was covered, not lost. The one that existed before pain, before programming, before performance. And sound is the access key, because in the quantum realm, everything is vibration. But not just random frequency, coherent, intentional, intelligent frequency. Sound is geometry in motion. Each tone creates structure, each vibration organizes space. The moment you vocalize a sacred sound with sincerity, you are not just affecting yourself, you are sculpting energy in real time. Particles shift, Fields respond, water within your body restructures, nerves rewire, tissues soften, because your cells are listening. They don't understand words, they understand vibration, and vibration doesn't lie. That's why when you speak without alignment, you feel disconnected. It's not because you said the wrong thing, it's because your frequency didn't match your words. But when you speak from coherence, from presence, from truth, everything clicks into place. Your voice becomes medicine, not because of volume, but because of resonant integrity. And this is the moment where practice becomes presence, where ritual becomes remembrance. So how do you sound the memory awake? You begin by breathing into your field. Close your eyes, let the external dissolve. Bring your awareness to the space just in front of your chest. Feel it, not as concept, but as living field. With each inhale, you draw in golden light, not imagined, but sensed. With each exhale, you clear static, old thoughts, old programs, anything not aligned with your current becoming. Then when the breath has softened you, when the heart is open, you allow the sound to emerge. It might come as a single tone. It might arrive as an ancient syllable, one that feels strangely familiar. Let it rise, let it vibrate your bones, let it pulse through your energy centers, and trust the sound will know where to go. Because sacred sound is not directed by the mind, it is guided by the intelligence of the field. You may want to begin with the seed tones. Ra for solar activation, Tru for universal remembrance, Om for field resonance, R for heart expansion. Each one is not a word, it's a frequency gate. It's a memory signature buried in your energy system, waiting to be reactivated. You don't need to understand what each one means. You need to feel what each one does, because when you chant them with presence, you change your electromagnetic field. Your body begins to emit a new harmonic, and the field you live in, the very quantum fabric of your reality, responds. It's not instant like magic, it's immediate like truth. And the more you repeat it, the more you align. Not just for a moment, but sustainably, because repetition with presence becomes resonance, and resonance becomes identity, and identity becomes field signature. And here's what no one tells you. Reality doesn't respond to effort, it responds to signature, to the vibrational imprint you emit when you're not trying, when you're just being. So when you chant with honesty, with coherence, with no expectation except to return to yourself, you become magnetic. Not because you chase, but because you align. And that alignment, that's what turns sound into structure. That's what turns vibration into form. You begin to speak not as someone who's trying to become something, but as someone who's already aligned with it. And your voice becomes an echo of that alignment. Your life begins to reflect it. People feel you before they hear you. Opportunities come not because you asked, but because your field is finally transmitting clearly. And that is what sounding the memory awake truly means. It means letting your body remember its ancient codes, letting your voice be the bridge between time and presence, letting your frequency lead before your actions do. And it's not something you do once. This is a practice, a return, a ceremony with your own soul, a few minutes a day, not as a task, but as a gift. Because you're not practicing to become something. You're practicing to stop forgetting who you already are. The sound will guide you, the breath will hold you, the field will meet you, and you will remember. And now the real practice begins. Not when the sound is released, but when the silence that follows it begins to reorganize you. Because the most powerful part of any vibrational activation is not in the moment you chant, but in how you hold the vibration once the echo fades. Can you stay open after the sound dissolves? Can you carry the coherence into the space where life meets you? Can you walk through the world not as someone who's raising their vibration, but as someone who is the vibration? That's the integration. That's the mastery. Not the intensity of the ritual, but the sustainability of the resonance. Because it's easy to feel aligned when the candles are lit, when your eyes are closed, when the outside world fades. But the true embodiment happens when you return to noise, to motion, to the ordinary. Can you be extraordinary there? That's the question this path asks you. Because the frequency you've activated is not meant to stay in meditation, it's meant to move through you, into your words, into your actions, into your presence. Every time you choose to speak with intention, to act from alignment, to breathe consciously in a difficult moment. You're anchoring this frequency deeper. You're stabilizing the signal. You're programming your field not just to rise, but to hold. This is where vibration becomes reality, because the universe doesn't just respond to what you activate once, it responds to what you sustain. So how do you sustain it? By choosing presence over projection, stillness over reaction, breath over resistance, truth over performance, and most of all, by remembering that you are not separate from the field, you are the field. Your heart, your thoughts, your sound, they are not influencing the field from outside, they are shaping it from within. So when you speak, you're not sending signals across space, you're adjusting the geometry of the space itself. You're reorganizing the lattice of potential, the invisible scaffolding of reality that responds not to force but to vibrational coherence. And this coherence doesn't require perfection, it requires honesty, humility, stillness, to pause before reacting, to breathe before answering, to feel before deciding. And when you live like that, even in small moments, you begin to transmit clarity. Your field becomes calm, not empty, powerful. People feel it, not because you're louder, but because you're more aligned. You don't need to explain yourself. Your energy speaks before your words do. And that's the final step in this work, to become the signal, not to repeat the sound, but to become what the sound opened in you. Because every sacred syllable you've chanted, every breath you've taken with intention, every moment of resonance you've touched, they live in your field now. They don't vanish, they imprint, they anchor. And when you remember that, you stop chasing transformation and start embodying remembrance. You stop reaching for something outside of you and start transmitting what's already inside. That's when the field bends. That's when the unseen becomes visible. That's when your reality reorganizes around your truth, not your fear, not your longing, but your alignment. And from this place, you don't need to control the future. You don't need to manipulate time. You simply maintain your resonance, and reality begins to reflect what you truly are. So keep practicing, not as effort, as devotion, not to improve yourself, to remember yourself. The breath will guide you, the sound will support you, the stillness will ground you, and your field will lead, because you are not here to chase light, you are here to be the frequency of it, fully, clearly, quietly, powerfully. And the more you live in this vibration, the more the world around you begins to remember too, because that's the secret. You don't just awaken for yourself, you awaken the field. You are no longer just remembering the frequency, you are beginning to become it. And in that becoming, something subtle but irreversible happens. The energy that once felt personal, intimate, internal, now begins to extend beyond your skin. This is the transmission phase, where your presence becomes louder than your words, where your silence begins to teach, where your frequency becomes a living invitation for others to remember theirs. You don't need to speak in spiritual terms. You don't need to explain what you've activated. The field speaks for you, because every step you take while holding your resonance, every breath you take while remaining anchored in coherence, sends out signals into the quantum web, and reality responds, not as isolated events, but as harmonic reordering. You'll notice that the right people begin to arrive, not because you looked for them, but because your frequency called them. You'll notice that what once felt heavy begins to dissolve, not because you fought it, but because you stopped feeding it. You'll notice that places, memories, even physical spaces, either align or fade away, because coherence attracts coherence, and what no longer resonates cannot stay. This is not something you force. This is something you allow, because in this field you are no longer the seeker, you are the signal. You are the harmonic note the universe tunes to. And this signal doesn't need to convince, it doesn't need to control, it doesn't need to push. It simply is. Your energy becomes clear, and in clarity, there is magnetism. In authenticity, there is movement. In stillness, there is power. You'll find that people open up in your presence, not because of what you say, but because of how they feel near you. Something in them begins to remember. Something in them begins to soften, not through effort, but through resonance. This is the beginning of vibrational leadership, not the kind that speaks from authority, but the kind that emanates from alignment. Because true leaders don't lead from power, they lead from frequency. And that frequency doesn't come from titles, roles, or knowledge. It comes from integration. It comes from truth. So when you walk into a room now, the energy doesn't just notice you, it responds to you. Because your presence is carrying data, not just information, but transformation. The breath you hold, the coherence you maintain, the sound you've anchored, all of it lives in your field now. And your field touches everything around you. You may not even realize it at first, but you'll notice how conversations shift, how synchronicities increase, how the timing of things becomes smoother, less friction, more flow. Because the field you carry isn't pushing, it's inviting. You've become a living permission slip for others to soften. You've become a mirror of what's possible when someone stops performing and starts vibrating in truth. And this is the most beautiful part of the transmission phase. You don't even need to try. Your frequency is doing the work. The more you embody it, the more you emit it. The more you emit it, the more you co-create reality by simply being. That is the great paradox of energy. The less you try to do, the more you become. You're no longer here to convince people to change. You're here to remember who you are, so deeply, so fully, that it reminds them of who they are. You are now the tone that tunes others, not through effort, but through clarity. Not by teaching, but by radiating. And in this state, your life becomes your practice. Each interaction a sacred exchange. Each moment a frequency offering. Each breath a silent transmission. And this is just the beginning. Because now that you've remembered the frequency, now that you've awakened the sound, now that you've embodied the breath, the field is open. Your signal is strong. Your voice, without even speaking, is now a bridge. A bridge between fear and presence, between doubt and stillness, between noise and signal. You are now the still point in a spinning world. And from that stillness you don't need to reach out. Life begins reaching for you. And now we return, not to end, but to integrate. Not to close the loop, but to become the field that never ends. Because the sound you released, the breath you offered, the stillness you entered, they were never just experiences. They were activations. Of what? Of the one force that shapes all reality, conscious vibration. You see, in the quantum world, nothing is solid. Nothing is fixed. Everything exists as potential, until observed, until felt, until vibrated into form. And this is the final forgotten truth. You are not just emitting a frequency, you are the observer that defines it. When you sang, you didn't just create sound waves, you gave form to possibility. You collapsed energetic potential into vibration. You told the field, this is my truth, this is my signal, this is who I choose to be. And the field listened, because sound is not just heard, it is measured, it is interpreted by the quantum structure of reality. The way a radio tunes to a frequency or a particle aligns under observation. The ancient mystics said, as within, so without. And now quantum physics echoes them. What you observe becomes. But here's the deeper layer. How you observe determines what becomes. If you observe your life with fear, you collapse timelines into scarcity. If you observe yourself with shame, you distort your signal before it can even emit. But when you observe with coherence, when you hold space for your vibration with trust, when you sound your truth without performance, then you are no longer just the instrument. You are the conductor, you are the composer, you are the observer and the frequency at once. And from this sacred stance, you don't react to life, you generate it. This is what the Sufis hinted at in their spinning, what the yogis accessed in stillness, what the shamans invoked in song. It was never just about transcendence. It was about creative alignment, to become a coherent observer, to watch your reality not with fear but with vibration, to live not from reaction but from resonant command. And that command is silent. It moves through tone, not language, through breath, not effort, through presence, not pressure. You don't have to make anything happen. You just need to observe yourself coherently, and the field begins to reflect what you truly are. Because the field is always listening. not to your words but to your emitted truth. And now your truth has changed, not in story, but in signal, not in identity, but in frequency. You may feel quiet, still, even empty. That is not absence. It is alignment. The silence after the sound is not the end. It is the moment where reality rearranges itself to reflect the tone you've just released. So when you walk back into your life, into noise, routine, complexity, don't try to hold the frequency. Become the observer of it. Let your awareness itself be the tuning fork. Breathe, watch, listen, and the vibration will rise on its own. You are no longer chasing coherence. You are anchoring it, not just in yourself but into the fabric of time and space. Your voice has become a geometric signature. Your silence has become a carrier wave. And your body, a living transmitter of sacred structure. You are not separate from the quantum field. You are the organizing rhythm within it. You are both vibration and the eye that beholds it. You are the sound and the space that holds the sound. So ask yourself, not what you want to create, but what you're ready to become. And then, simply observe that becoming. Because the field responds not to need, not to pressure, but to pure, uninterrupted resonance. And now, you are that resonance. So let this be your practice. To breathe with clarity, to speak with intention, to listen with the full body, to observe yourself with the reverence of one who knows they are shaping light. Because the universe is not outside of you. It is you, observed from within, and every sound you release in truth becomes a ripple across time. So when you forget, return to the sound, return to the stillness between thoughts, return to the breath that listens, return to the breath that listens, return to the observer. Because in the end, there is no end. Only vibration, choosing itself again and again and again through you.